Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to see whether the number of walls or the percentage of infill is better to make your model stronger. We're going to be using this model. It's a cable run, so basically you run your cables through there and then pedestrians can walk on top of that, and you can make it as long as you want by just adding more and more to them, and it stops a tripping hazard. So I've got these for when I have parties and stuff and I want to run cables out the back for the kids so they don't trip over it, and you just run the cables through there, close her up, and it's a nice little practical thing. So I'm going to be smashing them with this hammer, and I'm going to be driving over them with this car to see which ones last out best. So stay tuned and follow along. Okay, let's go. Okay, we're out here by the car to test the thickness and infill by running it over. Okay, 6 walls with 8% infill. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so backing over, let's go. Okay, I don't hear any cracking, so it seems to be okay. Let's have a look. Okay, so no damage at all. Excellent. Next one in is 1 wall, 8% infill. So this should be interesting. This is the weakest of the lot. Let's see how she goes. Oh, I can hear it cracking. Oh, no, I can see it's damaged. Oh no. Oh no, let's just split the side open. Oh, the inside's crushed too. No, that's not good. Right, next one, 1 wall, 50% infill. So it's got a fair bit of infill in it. So you'd think it'd go okay. Let's have a look. Oh, it's sort of acting as a block there. Come on, get over. There you go. You need to take a run up. Okay, yeah, no damage with this one either. Excellent. Okay, cool. Okay, let's go. And it is come out okay. Cool. So 4 walls, 8% infill, no problem at all. No damage. It's all intact. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's see how 2 walls and 8% infill goes. So it's one more wall than the one that we just crushed with the car. So I'm not quite sure if this one will hold up. So let's have a look. Oh, no cracking at all. Oh, cool. So let's have a look inside. And I will drive over it again just in case. Yep. Let's have a look inside now. Okay, so no damage. How cool is that? So absolutely no damage at all with 2 walls, 8% infill. 1 wall and 20% infill goes. Okay, so let's get that little rock off, and it looks pretty solid. No damage on the outside, no damage on the inside. Looks good. Okay, excellent. Okay guys, before we start smashing things with hammers, I'll just go over some settings in the slicers and how to get the infill changed and the walls changed in a few of the slicers. If you already know that, just jump forward and we'll get into the hammer smash, and then we'll analyze the prints, and then that should be it. Okay, so for infill you can have different sorts of infill, and most of the slicers call them the same thing. There's a little bit of difference, but the way to find them, and I'll just go through a few of them. So in Cura, you get Cura open. If you haven't got it loaded, you've got to load it through Marketplace. So you go up to Marketplace up here, and that will produce this. And from in this screen, you push the install on the settings guide. Okay, so you need to restart Cura, and once you've done that, when you come up to grid here, over here, it will come up with this little explanation on the side here, which you can scroll up and you can scroll through them all, and it explains all of the different patterns that you can have for your infill, and I'll tell you which one's stronger and which direction they're stronger and all that sort of stuff. So that's in Cura. So that's how you get the information out of Cura. It's really informative one in that. Jump in, you'll see that if you just have it like this, you just click this little down arrow here, and I'll pull down your settings, and the wall count is this second one here. Now you can either go with a count, or you can say I want it to be exactly this thickness up here. I usually just set the count, but do note that if you change the height or the height of each layer, it's going to make a difference to how many walls you're going to need. So if you have a 0.2 layer and you've got a 2 set here, when you change down to a 0.1, you'll need to make this a 0.4. So you're halving the height of each layer. You want to double the amount of walls that you have to make it the same thickness of wall. Or you can just come up here and just type in the thickness, and it will change the amount of walls you need just by changing that little figure up there. Okay, in all of them, this little backward arrow here will take you back to what the profile was last saved as. So if I click that, it'll take us back to what it was before. So you can either make it a certain thickness, so then it doesn't matter what layer height you've got, it will stay at that thickness, and it will change the wall count depending on what it needs to keep it at that layer height, or you can just change the wall count. So in Orca Slicer, you'll see that we're still in global. So if you go into objects, you can change objects by themselves. So if I had an object in there, it'd come up down the bottom here. You can individually load different objects with different settings, but we want to do a global setting. We want to come into strength, and in strength you've got your wall count here. That's how many walls you want, and also down here you've got your infill density, so how thick you want the infill inside, and there's your pattern. Infill pattern down here, and it's a selectable. So once you select that, it will then go into this screen, the Bambu Labs wiki. So Orca Slicer does use Bambu Labs Slicer, and of course it uses their information instead of rewriting it all. And once you're in there, you can also scroll through and see all the information from that. The other one is Creality Print. You have to double click on one of these. So if you double click on normal or high quality, whichever one you're doing, so if you're printing high quality, you double click on that. If you're printing normal, you double click on that. So if you double click on that, it will open up this screen. Now from that screen, you can see you can pick your infill here. It will show you all the different ones when you go through, you're scrolling down. So I did go into Creality's wiki, and it's all written in Chinese. So unless you know Chinese, it's not going to be much use to you. But it's a new slicer for Creality, so they're working on it. Hopefully they'll have it in English soon. But it's very similar to the one that Bambu Labs has. It's got a picture of it, a description. Prusa Slicer is very similar to Bambu Labs, because Bambu Labs uses Prusa Slicer, so it will be obviously similar. And they're the only ones I've used. I gather each slicer has got some explanation of how to do it, but they're the ones, they've all got some sort of explanation in them. So the ones we used for this experiment was the grid pattern, because it's the default on Creality Print, and it's the default on Orca Slicer, which I use for my K1 Max and my P1P. So that's why I use those grid patterns. I just use the default. Okay, the fun part of the video. Start smashing things with a hammer, eh? Let's go. What I've got is a bundle of them that the tops are softened, so I bang the tops on, and then I'll give them a real good hammering after that. Okay, let's go. So the first one is 2 walls, 10% infill. Okay, does a bit of damage. Oops, I don't know if you can see it. 2 walls, 20% infill. That does it all right. No damage at all. Okay, so I spent quite a bit of time smashing away and letting out all that inner anger, and Let's have a look at and analyse all the results of what actually happened to the models. Are these ones, the ones with one wall and 8% infill. So I did it twice just to double check, but you can see it's pretty much smashed the inside of it, damaged all along the seam here. Hasn't actually, it's cracked along here by the bend. Bottom, that's just a print, stuff up. Down here it's cracked all this, so it's pretty much stuffed it. And then I did it a second time, and it's done the same thing. So the two times I've had a go at this 1.8, just in case it was, or the 1 and the 8 fill, is just in case it was something I did, but it wasn't. So both the ones are stuck. All the rest were perfectly okay. Now, going through the other ones, this hammer smash with this 1 and 10% infill. As you can see, the top got annihilated. I can't really open it because it's stuck. Pushed the whole top down there. Okay, it smashed all the inside here. Apart from that, I think that's where I've hit it with the hammer. I haven't hit this side. Must have just hit on the edge here. It did enough damage to make it unusable. Then one wall 50% infill. No damage at all, as you'd expect. So much it's heavier too. It's a lot heavier, but no damage. So it was a good one. One wall and 20% infill. You can see it's got a big crack in the top. It's damaged in the down here underneath where it's joined. So apart from that, not too bad. But still, I can't really close the lid properly on it. It still just means I need to print a new lid. Two walls and 10% infill. As you can imagine, it hasn't gone very well. It's cracked all that, smashed all the inside here, smashed all the top. Hasn't done much to the bottom though, but still not usable. Two walls with 8% infill. Smashed the top. All the way through, it's annihilated the top. Smashed all the middle bit. But the rest is okay. So I'd probably reuse that with a new lid. Even though it's like that, I'd probably just plonk some glue on that and just hold it together, because it's only got a whole cables in it. So the lid's crap, but I could probably reuse that. Two walls 50% infill. It's cracked all the way through. You can see all the way through. But that's all it's really done. It's knocked a bit off the top here, where it's gone through here. But it hasn't done damage to the structure of it. Is still fairly sturdy. I'll probably reuse that. You'll probably use it as it is. Probably just chuck a bit of glue on that, a bit of super glue just to fill it and give it a bit of strength. It'll be reusable. Two walls 20% infill. Smashed through and cracked all the lid, but it's held up pretty well. Considering how hard I'm smashing with a hammer. I think some of them might have got the very edge of the hammer, and the others have got the flat of the hammer. I don't know, but still, that's usable. Now with the 4s, I did a 15 and a 45 at the start, so I sort of stuffed it up. But they came out well. So these are the extras that I didn't do on the other ones, but they had no damage whatsoever with 4 walls. So they come out really well. The ones with 4 walls mainly came out okay. So 4 walls with 10% infill. It's cracked it in here. It's cracked the top and the hinge. It's cracked along there. So I probably have to print a new top. Put a bit of glue on the bottom there. It has gone all the way through. A bit of crack there, but I could probably still reuse that. But still, the top fared better than I thought it would. 4 wheels 8% infill. Cracked it there. Cracked it down the bottom here. But in the hole, it's got a little ding there, but that's from when we drove the car over. It had a little stone under it. So that's from the hammer. That's reusable. 4 wheels 50% infill. Oh, this is just a bit of filament splintering. That's not a crack. No, it's not a crack. It's the filament coming off. Got a crack in the lid. Just a slight crack. Doesn't go all the way through though, it's a bit strange. Just on this side. That is strong as. Still strong. We'd expect so 50% infill. 4 walls 20% infill. It knocked the middle off. But no other damage. So I could probably use that as is, but what I'll do is get the I'll get the center, I'll just glue it back on just to give it somewhere to, yeah, that way, give it some bit of extra support in the middle there when people are walking over it. But if it can take a half-ton ute, it can take a person walking on it. So they're all the 4s. So all the 4s I can reuse. With the 6s, 6 walls 10% infill. Got a little crack on the top there, but interestingly enough, it's cracked the crap out of the top, and the center support's just gone to buggery. Hasn't gone all the way through, but still, you could probably glue that, reuse it if you use small cables through it, but still, it's got more damage than I thought it would have. 6 walls 50% infill. I'd expect this to be perfect. Now it's got a crack on the joint. But apart from that, no other damage. Still works fine. Just a tiny bit of CR glue on that. Should be right. 6 walls 20% infill. The top got annihilated. But the bottom is solid as. There's nothing wrong with the bottom, but the top is just dead. Nothing wrong with the bottom. So new top, that would be reusable. 6, 4 with 8% infill. It's interesting, the ones that smashed and the ones that didn't. It's got a crack here in the bottom, and it's got a crack in the lid. Just across there. But apart from that, no other damage. I would reuse that as is. Might put a tiny bit of glue on that, but not sure it needs it. Okay, so what I do with them, okay, so I've got it on the floor, my cables run through that, and I'm having this bit lean here. I'm going to put another one on the end there, and that basically means the dogs don't get the cables caught in them, and I don't trip over them, and they're out of the way. And when we have parties and stuff, when we run cables out the back for the kids, I'm going to put all the cables through this tubing. So there you have it. I would say no one is good by themselves. 4 walls seems to be the about right. No matter what infill I've got in the 4 walls, they all seem to work pretty well. So I'd go 4 walls. I usually go 4 walls anyway, and I usually go 10% infill. But if you want it to, and that will take the car. But then again, 2 walls took the car as well. So depends on what sort of, how the weight is, whether the weight is condensed into one little area or whether it's spread over like a tyre. Because the tyre hit the whole lot with all that weight, where the hammer is a impact coming in on a force. And I gather when the hammer was a bit on an angle and it hit on the edge, that's where it's gone through the tops. But where it's broken the bottoms, it's the force of the hammer. So definitely not 1 wall. If you're just going to do it for things that aren't going to have any pressure on it, 1 wall's fine. 1 wall, it's good for little models that are going to sit on your shelf and stuff. But usually I do at least 2. 2 is usually the default. 2 is the default in Orca Slicer, which is the one I usually use. 2 is the default in most of them, or more. For my droids, I do about 5 or 6, and I do a 15% infill. And I hit them with a hammer to get arms in and all sorts of stuff. The same hammer. I'm very careful about how I hit them, and I don't hit them like I was hitting them there. I usually just, so whack and make sure the flat of the hammer is hitting it. Sometimes I put a bit of wood up next to it and whack a bit of wood, so it's not getting the edge of the hammer at all. But so no, even with the 6, I mean the 6 wall ones did better than the 1 wall ones. but still it needs a bit of infill. With the 6 walls with 8% infill, still with the force of the hammer did get some damage. It didn't get as much damage as the 1 wall one did, but it did get a bit. So I usually, when I go to do my models and stuff, if I want more strength around the outside of it where it's going to get knocked or hit, or I need to whack it with a hammer, I put more walls on it. I increase the walls before I increase the infill. I don't usually go below 10 because most of my things require force and they're heavy and they need a bit of guts in them to hold it in place. But if it's just sitting on the shelf like a helmet or something, I will go down to 8. Some people go down to 5. I usually stop at 8% infill when it's not got any forces on it. Once it starts to get force on, I build up the infill. I don't usually go past, I don't usually really go past 20. But I have done some with 50, but it just seems to be using up a lot more filament to do that. I did notice that when I did the, here we go, the 200 walls with 1% infill and the 1 wall with 100% infill, there was 10, 20 grams difference in filament used, but the walls took an hour quicker to print than the infill. But it doesn't have to do all the little crisscrosses, it just does the rings and rings and rings, and that's why it made it quicker. So next I will have another video next week. I'm trying to do a video a week, so the only way you're going to know when they come out is if you're subscribed and ding that little bell, and make it all follows. Okay guys, have a nice day and a nice week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.